The transport shuttle cut through the purple clouds of Nexus Prime and began its slow descent toward the largest structure on the planet. The Orion Galactic Academy stretched across 3 mountain peaks, its silver towers reaching toward the sky like fingers trying to touch the stars. For over 10,000 years, this place had trained the greatest minds and warriors in the known universe. Kings sent their children here. Warlords begged for their sons and daughters to be accepted. The waiting list stretched across generations. Inside the shuttle, dozens of young aliens sat in comfortable seats, talking loudly about their families and their plans. A massive Valkyrie warrior with blue skin and 4 eyes bragged about his father's conquests. A crystalline Ethon girl floated slightly above her seat, her transparent body glowing with soft pink light as she communicated with others of her kind through telepathy. A group of 4-armed Keshans compared the sizes of their family estates. In the back corner, sitting alone, a young human woman watched through the window. Her name was Yuna. She wore simple gray clothes that looked old and worn. Her black hair was tied back in a practical ponytail. She carried only one bag, and it was small enough to fit on her lap. She looked ordinary in every way. When the shuttle landed and the doors opened, the cadets rushed out to meet their futures. Servants waited for the wealthy ones. Military escorts stood ready for the royal ones. Camera drones flew around, recording the arrival of the next generation of galactic leaders. Nobody waited for Yuna. She stepped off the shuttle last, her warm boots touching the polished marble of the landing platform. A few aliens glanced at her and quickly looked away. Humans were not interesting. Everyone knew about humanity. They were a young species from a small planet in the outer rim. They had no great military. They had no vast empire. They had produced nothing of value to galactic civilization. In the entire history of the Academy, no human had ever graduated in the top half of their class. Yuna walked toward the registration building, her bag hanging from one shoulder. The air smelled clean and artificial. The gravity felt slightly lighter than what she was used to. Everywhere she looked, she saw wealth and power displayed without shame. At the registration desk, a bored-looking alien with green scales processed her documents. Park Yuna, the alien read from its screen. Homeworld, Earth, Colony Designation, Outer Rim Settlement 7. Sponsor, none listed. Financial support, scholarship grant. The alien finally looked up, its yellow eyes showing slight surprise. A scholarship human. How unusual. Is there a problem? Yuna asked. Her voice was soft and calm. No problem. You are assigned to Dormitory Block 7, Room 2847. Bottom tier housing. The alien slid a small metal card across the desk. This is your access key. Orientation begins tomorrow at dawn. Do not be late. Yuna took the card and nodded politely. Thank you. She found her dormitory after a long walk through endless corridors. The bottom tier was exactly what she expected. The hallways were narrower here. The lights were dimmer. The walls showed small cracks that nobody bothered to fix. This was where the academy put the students it did not care about. Her room was small. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 storage units. Everything was basic and functional. Her roommate was already there, a young Valkyrie male who jumped to his feet when she entered. Oh, hello. You must be my roommate. He was tall and thin, unusual for his warrior species. His blue skin was pale, and his 4 eyes blinked nervously. I am Torek. I apologize for the room. I know it is not what most cadets receive. My family is not important, so they placed me here. I hope you do not mind sharing with a Valkyrie. I know some species find us frightening. Yuna set her bag on the empty bed and looked around the small space. A tiny window showed a view of a gray wall. I like it, she said simply. It reminds me of home. Torek relaxed slightly. Really? You are very kind to say so. I was worried when I saw a human was assigned here. I have never met a human before. Are you all so calm? Yuna sat on her bed and began unpacking her bag. There was not much inside. Some clothes. A few personal items. A small wooden box that she placed carefully in her storage unit without opening. I do not know, she answered honestly. I have not met many other humans either. Torek sat on his own bed, watching her with obvious curiosity. You are very mysterious. Where did you grow up? What is Earth like? Why did you come to the academy? Yuna finished unpacking and turned to face him. She had a gentle face, with dark eyes that seemed older than her years. When she smiled, it was small and tired. I grew up in a small village, she said. Earth is beautiful in some places and broken in others. I came here because I wanted to learn new things and meet new people. That is wonderful. I also wanted to meet new people. My own people do not like me very much. I am not a good warrior. I get scared easily. My hands shake when I hold weapons. Torek looked down at his four-fingered hands with shame. My father sent me here to become stronger. I do not think it will work. Yuna studied him for a long moment. Then she reached out and patted his arm gently. Being scared does not mean you are weak, she said. Sometimes the bravest people are the ones who feel fear and move forward anyway. Torek's eyes widened. That is a very wise thing to say. Someone told it to me once, a long time ago. That night, while Torek slept peacefully in his bed, Yuna lay awake and stared at the ceiling. The academy's artificial moonlight created soft shadows across the walls. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the hum of machines keeping everything running. She had not told Torek the complete truth. She had not told anyone the complete truth in a very long time. In the main administration building, far from the bottom-tier dormitories, a computer system completed its standard scan of all new arrivals. It processed thousands of data points, genetic information, biometric readings, background checks, and security assessments. When it reached the file for Park Yuna, the system paused. An anomaly had been detected. The computer attempted to analyze it, cross-referencing with its massive database of known species and individuals. Then something strange happened. The anomaly triggered a hidden protocol that had been dormant for 19 years. Within seconds, the file was buried under 17 layers of encryption. The anomaly was erased from all standard records. A single notification was sent to a location outside Academy jurisdiction, to an address that officially did not exist. The notification contained only 3 words: "She is here." In her small room, Yuna closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. Tomorrow would be a long day. Tomorrow, she would have to pretend again. She was very good at pretending. The morning sun rose over the academy, painting the silver towers in shades of gold and orange. Hundreds of new cadets gathered in the massive arena at the heart of the campus. The air buzzed with nervous energy. Everyone knew what was coming: the Crucible. Every generation of academy students began their journey with this test. It was designed to be brutal. It was designed to break the weak and reward the strong. Teams would be thrown into a deadly simulation, hunted by machines, forced to survive and fight their way to safety. Performance in the Crucible determined everything: social status, dormitory assignments, access to advanced training. A good performance could change a cadet's entire future. Yuna stood near the back of the crowd, wearing the standard gray training uniform that all cadets received. Torek stood beside her, his 4 eyes darting around nervously. I heard that 3 cadets died during last year's Crucible, Torek whispered. The simulations are supposed to be non-lethal, but accidents happen. What if I freeze? What if I get my team killed? You will not freeze, Yuna said calmly. And you will not get anyone killed. How can you be so sure? Because I will be watching out for you. Before Tarek could respond, a loud horn sounded across the arena. The crowd fell silent. On a raised platform, a woman in military uniform stepped forward. She was human, which surprised many of the alien cadets. Her face was hard and scarred, and her eyes swept across the crowd like a predator examining prey. "I am Commander Haniel," she announced, her voice amplified to reach every corner of the arena. "I am the Academy's head of combat training. Today, you will face the Crucible. Some of you will succeed. Many of you will fail. A few of you might even wish you had never come to this place." She smiled coldly. "Good. That means the test is working." The teams were announced randomly. Yuna found herself grouped with two others. The first was Doan, a Keshan prince with 4 arms and an attitude that matched his noble birth. His silver skin shimmered with expensive genetic modifications, and he wore his family's crest proudly on his chest. "A human?" Doan said when he saw Yuna approach. "They put me with a human? This is an insult to my family's honor." The second teammate was Myray, an Ethon girl whose crystalline body flickered with unstable light. She was young even by her species standards, and she kept her eyes fixed on the ground, refusing to look at anyone. "She is defective," Doan continued, gesturing at Myray with 2 of his arms. "Everyone knows the Ethon send their broken ones here, hoping the Academy can fix them. And now I am stuck with a broken telepath and a worthless human. I should file a complaint." "You should focus on the test," Yuna said quietly. Doan turned to her with anger in his eyes. "Do not speak to me, human. Know your place. When we enter the simulation, you will follow my orders without question. I am a prince of the Keshan Empire. I have trained in combat since I could walk. You are nothing." Yuna did not argue. She simply nodded and waited. The simulation began 30 minutes later. One moment they were standing in the arena. The next moment, they were somewhere else entirely. Dense jungle surrounded them. Strange plants with purple leaves blocked out most of the sunlight. The air was hot and wet and filled with the sounds of unknown creatures. "This way," Doan commanded immediately. He began pushing through the undergrowth, not waiting to see if the others followed. "The extraction point should be north. We move fast and we move quiet. Stay behind me." Myray stumbled after him, her crystalline legs struggling with the uneven ground. Yuna followed last, her eyes scanning the environment with careful attention. Something was wrong. She could feel it. "Wait," she called out softly. "We should not go this way." Doan spun around with fury on his face. "What did I tell you about speaking? I am the leader. I make the decisions. Now keep quiet and follow." He continued forward. 20 steps later, the first trap activated. Net, made of energy, burst from the ground and wrapped around Doan, lifting him into the air. He screamed in surprise and pain as the net tightened. Before anyone could react, a swarm of hunter drones emerged from the trees, their red sensor lights blinking as they locked onto their targets. Myray panicked. Her crystalline body flared with unstable energy, and she fired a blast of telepathic force at the nearest drone. The blast went wild, missing completely and striking a tree instead. The tree exploded, sending burning debris everywhere. A piece of flaming wood hit Myray in the shoulder. She cried out and fell to the ground, clutching her wound. The drones moved closer. There were 7 of them now, forming a circle around the team. Their weapons hummed with charging energy. In the observation room high above the simulation, Commander Haniel watched on a large screen. Dozens of teams were being monitored simultaneously, but her attention kept returning to one specific group. The Keshan Prince made a predictable mistake, one of the other instructors commented. He walked right into a standard ambush pattern. His team will be eliminated within minutes. Haniel said nothing. She was watching the human girl dot in the jungle. Yuna moved. She did not run toward the drones. She did not hide behind cover. She simply stepped forward, placing herself between the machines and her injured teammate. Then she did something that made no sense. She closed her eyes. The first drone fired. Yuna stepped to the left without looking, and the energy bolt passed through empty air. The second drone fired. She ducked. The third and fourth fired together. She twisted her body sideways, letting both bolts miss by centimeters. In the observation room, Commander Haniel leaned forward. Her hands gripped the edge of the console. "Hoter, that is impossible," the other instructor breathed. "No human can move like that. No human can react that fast." Yuna opened her eyes. In one smooth motion, she grabbed a fallen branch from the ground, snapped it in half across her knee, and threw both pieces at two different drones. The throws were perfect. Both drones sparked and crashed to the ground. Then she was moving through the remaining drones like water flowing around stones. She disabled them one by one, using their own momentum against them, finding weak points that should have been hidden. The entire battle lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, Yuna walked calmly to where Dohan hung in the energy net. She studied the trap for a moment, then pressed a specific point on the base unit. The net deactivated, and Dohan fell to the ground with a grunt. She helped him to his feet. His eyes were wide with shock. "How did you do that?" he demanded. "How did you know where to press?" "These traps are military grade. The weak points are classified." Yuna shrugged. "Lucky guess." She turned to Myrae and knelt beside her. The Ethon girl was crying silently, her crystalline tears falling like drops of liquid light. "I am sorry," Myrae whispered. "I am useless. I cannot control my powers. Everyone says I am broken." Yuna gently examined her wound. It was not serious. "You are not broken," Yuna said softly. "You are just young. Your power will come with time and practice. For now, lean on me. I will help you walk." She lifted Myrae carefully and supported her weight. Then she looked at Dohan, who was still staring at her with confusion and something that might have been the beginning of respect. "The extraction point is northeast, not north," Yuna said. "There is a river 2 kilometers ahead. The drones cannot cross water. If we follow the riverbank, we can reach the extraction point safely." Dohan opened his mouth, probably to argue. Then he closed it. "Lead the way," he said quietly. They reached the extraction point with the fastest time of any team. When they emerged from the simulation, other cadets stared at them with surprise. Whispers spread through the crowd. Commander Haniel descended from the observation room and approached Yuna directly. Her scarred face showed no emotion, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" she asked. Yun met her gaze without flinching. "My village had many wild animals. We had to learn to defend ourselves." Commander Haniel stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away without another word. But that night, alone in her office, the commander opened a file she had sworn never to look at again. It contained classified footage from humanity's darkest hour, a war that the rest of the galaxy barely knew existed. In the footage, a young woman moved through enemies like death itself, using a fighting style that had been developed in secret and never shared with anyone outside Earth's military. The woman in the footage was younger, but the face was unmistakable. "Who are you really, Park Yuna?" Commander Haniel whispered to the empty room. News of the Crucible results spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, everyone knew about the human girl who had saved her team and achieved the fastest completion time in 15 years. Within days, Yuna became the most talked about cadet on campus. She did not want the attention. The first invitation came from Prince Jaewon of the Valkyrie Empire. He was tall and handsome by his species standards, with deep blue skin and golden eyes that carried the weight of royal blood. His family controlled 3 star systems and commanded the largest military fleet in the Eastern Quadrant. "I have heard impressive things about you," Jaewon said, finding Yuna alone in the academy library. He sat across from her without asking permission, his 4 eyes studying her with interest. "My inner circle could use someone with your talents. Join us. I can offer you protection, resources, connections. Your future would be secured." Yuna looked up from the book she was reading. It was an old text about galactic history, written in a language that most species considered dead. "Thank you for the offer," she said politely. "But I came here to study, not to join political circles." Jaewon seemed surprised. Most cadets would have done anything for such an invitation. "You misunderstand. This is not a casual offer. I am giving you a chance to rise above your species' limitations. Do you know what happens to humans who graduate from this academy? They become advisors at best, servants at worst. With my support, you could become something more." Yuna closed her book and met his gaze directly. "I appreciate your concern for my future, but I must decline." Something flickered in Jaewon's eyes. It might have been anger. It might have been curiosity. He stood and straightened his expensive uniform. "I do not give up easily, Park Yuna. We will speak again." The second approach came from Lady Soman of the Keshan High merchant families. Unlike Jaewon's direct method, Soman worked through agents and intermediaries. She hired investigators to dig into Yuna's background. She offered bribes to academy administrators for access to enrollment records. She even tried to hack into Earth's colonial databases. All her efforts produced nothing. Yuna's records were clean. Too clean. Her background was simple and unremarkable. Birth certificate from Outer Rim Settlement 7. Basic education at a rural school. Scholarship application approved through standard channels. But there were gaps. Strange inconsistencies. The school she supposedly attended had burned down 20 years ago. The colony she claimed as her birthplace had no record of her family. The scholarship grant came from an account that led nowhere. It was as if someone had built her history from pieces of empty air. The third and most troubling development arrived on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. A ship bearing the black and silver colors of the Dominion landed at the Academy's diplomatic port. The Dominion was the oldest power in the galaxy, an empire that had existed for over 50,000 years. They rarely involved themselves in the affairs of younger civilizations. When they did, it usually meant something terrible was about to happen. The envoy who stepped off the ship was tall and thin, with gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. His species had no name that other races could pronounce. His eyes were completely black, like holes cut into the fabric of reality. His name was Collector Mun. Officially, he was there to observe the new class of cadets. Officially, the Dominion was interested in identifying exceptional talents for future diplomatic relations. Officially, his visit was routine. But Yuna noticed him watching her. In the dining hall, his black eyes followed her movements. In the training grounds, he appeared at the edge of her vision, standing perfectly still while others moved around him. In the corridors between classes, she would turn a corner and find him there. His thin lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. He never spoke to her directly. He never approached. He simply watched and waited. Meanwhile, Yuna continued her studies as if nothing had changed. She attended lectures on interstellar politics. She trained in combat simulations. She learned to pilot small spacecraft in the Academy's flight program. She also made friends. It started with Myray. The Ethon girl sought her out after the Crucible, wanting to thank her for the kind words and gentle care. They began eating meals together. then studying together, then simply spending time together. The others say, I am too emotional, Myray confided one evening. My people communicate through pure thought. Emotions are considered noise, interference, but I feel everything so strongly. Joy, fear, sadness. It overwhelms me. Emotions are not weakness, Yuna said. They are what make us alive. Without them, we would just be machines. Marie's crystalline body glowed warmly. You say strange things. Good strange. Torek joined their small group, naturally. He was still nervous and uncertain, but he was fiercely loyal to anyone who showed him kindness. He started sitting with them at meals, his four eyes constantly scanning for threats that never came. Even Doan eventually swallowed his pride and approached them. The crucible had changed something in him. Watching Yuna save his life had cracked his arrogant shell. I was wrong about you, he admitted gruffly one day. You are not worthless. You are skilled. Perhaps the most skilled fighter I have ever seen. Where did you truly learn to fight like that? Yuna gave him the same answer she gave everyone. My village had many wild animals. Doan snorted. I do not believe you. But I will not ask again. Everyone has secrets. The last to join their circle was Junho. He was human, one of only 7 humans enrolled in the entire academy. He was loud and friendly, and completely without shame about his species' low status. I figure if I cannot beat them with power, I will beat them with personality, he explained cheerfully. Make them laugh. Make them like me. Then they forget that I am supposed to be inferior. He was fascinated by Yuna. He asked her questions constantly. About Earth, about humans, about her life before the academy. One evening, when they were alone in the library, he asked her directly, Who are you really, Yuna? I have met plenty of humans. You are different. The way you move, the way you speak, the way you look at things like you have seen them before. He leaned closer. Sometimes when you think no one is watching, you get this look on your face. Like you are carrying something heavy, something that hurts. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Outside the library windows, the Academy's artificial stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. I am someone who made a promise, she said finally. And I am someone who is very, very tired. Junho waited for more. When nothing came, he sighed. Well, whoever you are, I am glad you are here. This place was lonely before. Now it feels like we have a family. Yuna smiled. It was small and sad and genuine. Yes, she agreed. It does. That night, while the Academy slept, Commander Haniel stood outside the diplomatic quarters where Collector Mun was staying. She had requested a private meeting. He had agreed. I know why you are here, she said without introduction. You are not observing cadets. You are hunting someone. Collector Mun's black eyes reflected no light. You are perceptive for a human. Yes, I am hunting. I have been hunting for 19 years. Who? The collector smiled. It was the most disturbing expression Haniel had ever seen. A ghost. A legend. A weapon that refused to stay dead. He turned his empty gaze toward the dormitory buildings in the distance. The Dominion has a long memory, Commander. We remember everyone who has hurt us. And we never stop hunting until the debt is paid. Commander Haniel felt ice spread through her chest. If you harm any of my students, she said carefully, there will be consequences. Collector Mun laughed softly. Your students are safe. Most of them. But the one I seek is no student. She is something else entirely. He began walking back toward his quarters. Something that should not exist. Something that killed 3 Dominion Archons with her bare hands 20 years ago and then vanished like smoke. He paused at the door and looked back over his shoulder. She calls herself Yuna now. How charming. as if a new name could wash away the blood. The door closed behind him, leaving Commander Haniel alone in the cold night air. The Academy's annual fleet simulation was the biggest event of the academic year. Representatives from every major power in the galaxy gathered to watch. Screens across 100 worlds broadcast the action live. Cadets who performed well could secure their futures with a single impressive showing. The simulation itself was massive. Hundreds of cadets divided into fleets, commanding virtual warships in a recreation of famous historical battles. This year's scenario was the Battle of Crimson Nebula, a legendary engagement where outnumbered forces had defeated a superior enemy through clever tactics. Yuna had been assigned to a minor support role, piloting a small scout ship. She did not mind. She preferred to stay out of the spotlight. But she could not shake the feeling that something bad was about to happen. She had seen Collector Mun in the observation gallery that morning. His black eyes had found hers across the crowded room. He had smiled. The simulation began at noon. For the first hour, everything proceeded normally. Fleets maneuvered. Ships engaged. The audience cheered for their favorites. Prince Jaewon commanded his fleet with impressive skill, earning praise from the Valkyrie observers. Lady Summon's Keshan forces executed precise tactical formations. Then the alarm started. At first, the instructors thought it was part of the simulation. Red lights flashed. Warning sounds filled the command centers. But the simulation was designed to be safe. The weapons were supposed to be virtual. They were not. Somewhere in the Academy systems, lines of malicious code activated. The safety protocols that kept simulation weapons harmless were disabled. Energy cannons that should have fired holographic beams began shooting real plasma. Shields that should have protected cadet vessels failed to activate. The first ship exploded. Then the second. Then the third. Chaos erupted. Cadets who had been playing a game suddenly found themselves fighting for their lives. Communications collapsed. Command structures fell apart. The carefully organized fleets became scattered groups of panicking young people. In the observation gallery, VIPs screamed and tried to flee. Security forces rushed to contain the situation. But no one understood what was happening or how to stop it. In the corridors beneath the simulation chambers, Yuna ran toward the source of the problem. She had recognized the pattern of the attack immediately. It was Dominion technology. Dominion methods. This was not an accident. This was an assassination attempt. She found Collector Mun waiting for her in a maintenance hallway. The lights had been disabled, leaving only emergency red illumination. Smoke drifted through the air from damaged systems. In the distance, she could hear screams and explosions. Finally, Mun said. His thin voice echoed off the metal walls. I was beginning to think you would hide forever. Yuna stopped 10 meters away from him. Her face showed no emotion. You killed cadets, children. For what? For you. Mun began walking toward her slowly. The Dominion has been searching for you for 20 years. The ghost of Earth, the butcher of Kepler Station, the woman who ended our occupation of human space single-handedly. He stopped and tilted his head. Do you know how many Dominion soldiers you killed during the Unification War? We counted. 14,312. And that does not include the 3 Archons you murdered with your bare hands. They were going to destroy Earth, Yuna said quietly. They were going to kill everyone. I did what I had to do. You did more than that. You humiliated us. The Dominion had never lost a war. Never retreated. Never failed. And then a single human girl tore through our armies like they were made of paper. Mun's black eyes seemed to deepen. The Dominion does not forget. We do not forgive. And we never stop hunting. He raised his hand, and it was a weapon that Yuna recognized. A neural disruptor. It would not kill her body. It would destroy her mind. 20 years, Mun continued. 20 years you hid. Changed your face. Changed your name. Pretended to be ordinary. And for what? To teach children? To make friends? He laughed. The greatest weapon humanity ever created, wasting away in a classroom. How pathetic. Yuna did not move. I am not a weapon. I never wanted to be a weapon. I did what was necessary, and then I disappeared because I did not want to hurt anyone else. But you will. That is what you are. That is all you are. Mun aimed the disruptor at her head. The Dominion is coming back. We have spent 2 decades rebuilding. In 5 years, our fleets will return to human space. We will finish what we started. And this time, there will be no ghost to stop us. He smiled his terrible smile. Unless I kill you first. He fired. Yuna moved. The neural blast passed through empty air. Yuna was already somewhere else, her body flowing through space like water. She had not consciously decided to move. Her training had taken over. The training that had been burned into her bones since she was 5 years old. She reached into the bag she carried everywhere. Her hand closed around something cold and ancient. She drew the sword. It was not a normal weapon. The blade was made of materials that had not existed in this galaxy for 10 million years. The edge hummed with energy that predated the formation of stars. When she held it, the weapon recognized her. It had been made for her. Only for her. Mun's eyes widened. That is impossible. That weapon was destroyed. No. Yuna's voice had changed. It was harder now. Colder. It was hidden. Like me. She stepped forward. Mun fired again and again. Yuna cut through each blast with her blade, the ancient metal absorbing the energy like it was nothing. She crossed the distance between them in heartbeats. The fight lasted 11 seconds. When it ended, Collector Mun lay on the floor. His weapon hand was gone, severed cleanly at the wrist. His legs were broken in 3 places. He was still alive, but only because Yuna chose to let him live. She stood over him, her sword still humming with power. Tell your masters what you saw today, she said. Tell them the ghost is still here. Tell them that if they come for Earth again, I will be waiting. She turned and walked away. Behind her, Mun managed to laugh through his pain. You cannot hide anymore. The entire galaxy saw you. Every camera, every broadcast, every recording device in the observation gallery was feeding live when you drew that weapon. Yuna stopped. Everyone knows now, Mun continued. The humans, the Velkari, Pekeshans, everyone. You cannot pretend anymore. The ghost has a face. Yuna stood very still for a long moment. Then she continued walking. Above her, in the observation gallery, thousands of screens showed the same image. A human woman in simple clothes, holding a sword that glowed like a captured star. Representatives from every major power watched in stunned silence as security footage replayed her battle with the Dominion. Assassin. Prince Jaewon stared at the screen with his mouth open. Lady Summon's calculations crashed against the reality of what she was seeing. Commander Haniel closed her eyes and felt the weight of long-held suspicions finally confirmed. In the damaged corridors of the simulation chambers. Mireille and Torek and Dawn and Junho huddled together, protected by emergency barriers that Yuna had activated before confronting Mun. That is her, Junho whispered, watching the footage on a damaged screen. That is actually her. The stories were real. What stories? Torek asked, his voice shaking. The ghost of Earth. Every human child grows up hearing about her. The soldier who saved our species. The woman who killed 3 Dominion Archons. We thought she was a legend. A myth. Junho's eyes filled with tears. She was real. And she was eating lunch with us this whole time. On screens across the galaxy, Yuna walked out of the smoke and fire. Her sword was gone, hidden away once more. Her clothes were torn and burned. But her eyes were clear. She looked directly into the nearest camera. "My name is Park Yuna," she said. Her voice carried across 100 worlds. "I am the last survivor of Earth's Vanguard program. 20 years ago, I fought a war to save my people. I thought the war was over. I was wrong." She paused. "To the Dominion, I know you are watching. I know what you are planning. If you come for Earth again, I will stop you again. This is not a threat. This is a promise." She turned away from the camera. "To everyone else, I came here to find peace, to be normal, to protect the next generation so they would never have to become what I became." She looked toward the dormitory buildings where her friends waited. "I am sorry I lied. I am sorry I could not trust you with the truth. I hope someday you can forgive me." The broadcast ended. The galaxy held its breath. The days following Yuna's revelation shook the foundations of galactic politics. Every news channel broadcast her image. Every diplomatic chamber debated what her existence meant. Every military command center revised their threat assessments. But for Yuna, the most difficult moments happened in private. She sat alone in her small dormitory room. Torek had not returned since the attack. She did not blame him. She had lied to everyone. She had pretended to be something she was not. Why would anyone want to stay close to her now? A knock came at the door. Yuna did not answer at first. The knocking continued. "Go away," she called out. "No," came a familiar voice. It was Myray. The door opened. Myray floated in, her crystalline body glowing with soft light. Behind her came Torek, then Doan, then Junho. They filed into the small room and stood in a loose circle around Yuna's bed. She looked up at them with surprise and something that might have been fear. "You should stay away from me," she said. "Being connected to me will make you targets. The Dominion has long memories." "We know," Junho said. He smiled, though his eyes were still red from crying. "We talked about it. All of us. We decided we do not care. You are our friend," Myray added softly. "You helped me when I was hurt. You told me I was not broken. You were the first person to ever say that to me. You saved my life," Dahan admitted. "In the Crucible. In the attack. Probably other times I do not even know about. I was arrogant and cruel to you, and you saved me anyway." Torek stepped forward nervously. His 4 eyes were wet with tears. "I am scared," he said honestly. "I am always scared. But you told me that being scared does not make me weak. You said the brave ones are the ones who feel fear and move forward anyway." He reached out and took her hand. "I want to be brave. I want to stand beside you." Yuna stared at them. For the first time in 20 years, she felt tears forming in her own eyes. "I killed people," she whispered. "Thousands of them. I have done terrible things. I am not a good person." Junho knelt beside her bed. "You saved your entire species. You protected billions of innocent people. And when it was over, instead of using your power to conquer or rule, you walked away. You came here to teach and help and guide." He shook his head. "That is not what bad people do." "We are not asking you to be perfect," Myray said. "We are asking you to be our friend." Yuna looked at each of them in turn. The nervous Volcari who wanted to be brave. The broken Ethan who just wanted to belong. The arrogant Keshan prince who was learning humility. The cheerful human who refused to let circumstances define him. They were not soldiers. They were not weapons. They were young people trying to find their way in a complicated galaxy. They were exactly what she had wanted to protect. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay." The political aftermath unfolded over the following weeks. The Dominion, exposed by Collector Munn's transmission as the aggressors in humanity's near extinction, faced consequences they had not anticipated. The broadcast had shown everything. Their plans to return, their intention to finish wiping out Earth, their use of an Academy attack to cover an assassination. The Valkyrie Empire led the response. Prince Jawan, moved by what he had witnessed, convinced his father to issue a formal condemnation. The Keshan Trade Federation followed, threatening economic sanctions. Other powers added their voices. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Dominion was forced to retreat. They withdrew their diplomatic presence from a dozen systems. They canceled military buildups that had been years in preparation. They publicly disavowed Collector Munn's actions and claimed he had acted alone. No one believed them. But for now, they were contained. Humanity's position transformed overnight. For centuries, they had been considered a minor species with nothing to offer. Now, representatives from major powers arrived at Earth colonial offices, seeking diplomatic relations. Trade agreements that had been impossible before suddenly became available. Military alliances were proposed. More importantly, the galaxy now knew the truth about the Dominion's first war against humanity. Records that had been classified for decades were released. The brutality of the Dominion occupation, the desperate resistance, the sacrifice of an entire generation, and the girl who had ended it all. At the Academy, life slowly returned to normal. Classes resumed. The damaged simulation chambers were repaired. The cadets who had survived the attack were honored as heroes, regardless of their species or status. Yuna was offered a choice: continue as a student or accept a position as an instructor. Commander Haniel made the offer personally, standing in the same maintenance corridor where Yuna had defeated Mun. You could train the next generation, Haniel said. Not to be weapons, to be protectors, to be better than we were. Yuna considered the offer carefully. I came here to learn how to be a person again. I have spent 20 years running from what I am. I thought that if I pretended hard enough, I could become someone else. She looked down at her hands. Hands that had killed. Hands that had saved. But you cannot run from yourself. You can only choose what to do with what you are. Is that a yes? Haniel asked. Yuna smiled. It was not the small, tired smile she usually wore. It was something brighter. Something real. I would like to do both, she said. Teach and learn. I still have much to figure out. Haniel nodded. I think that can be arranged. Weeks later, on a peaceful afternoon, Yuna sat in the Academy gardens with her friends. The artificial sun cast warm light across the carefully maintained plants. Birds that had been imported from a dozen different worlds sang in the trees. They were arguing about dinner. My family's restaurant chain has locations on 40 worlds, Dohan insisted, all four arms gesturing dramatically. The quality is unmatched. The ingredients are imported fresh every day. Earth noodles, Junho countered stubbornly. Nothing beats Earth noodles. Simple, honest, delicious. You are both wrong, Myri said, her crystalline body pulsing with amusement. Ethan Energy Cuisine is the most refined dining experience in the galaxy. I just want everyone to stop yelling, Torek muttered. Yuna leaned back on the grass and closed her eyes. She listened to their voices, their laughter, their meaningless debate about food. These sounds were more precious to her than victory in any battle. Junho noticed her stillness. Hey, you okay? Yuna opened her eyes and looked up at the artificial sky. In the distance, she could see ships coming and going from the Academy's ports. Each one carried young beings with dreams and fears and hopes for the future. I spent 20 years as a ghost, she said. Running, hiding, pretending to be nothing. She sat up and looked at her friends. I thought that was what peace meant. Being invisible. Being forgotten. She smiled. I was wrong. Peace is not about disappearing. It is about finding people worth staying visible for. Worth fighting for. Worth living for. Junho grinned. That was beautiful. Very poetic. Now seriously, Earth noodles or what? Yuna laughed. It was a real laugh, free and unguarded. Fine, Earth noodles. But Doan pays. What? Why do I have to pay? Because you called me worthless on our first day. Consider this long-term repayment. The others burst into laughter as Dohan sputtered with indignation. Later that evening, as the artificial stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Yuna stood at the edge of the gardens and looked out at the academy she now called home. Behind her, she could hear her friends still arguing happily about nothing important. She thought about the future. The Dominion was wounded but not defeated. They would come again someday. Other threats would emerge. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. But for the first time in 20 years, Yuna was not afraid. She had spent her childhood learning to kill. She had spent her youth winning a war. She had spent 2 decades hiding from what she had done. Now, finally, she would spend the rest of her life learning to live. She turned back toward her friends, toward their laughter and warmth and unconditional acceptance. She had been a weapon. She had been a ghost. She had been a legend. Now, she was just Yuna, and that was more than enough.